Here are our top stories in 90 seconds.
It hit hard and fast.
The Delta variant of COVID-19 is quickly spreading in Colorado, recently taking the life of a 15-year-old girl on the western slope.
She was an amazing girl. She was a major sweetheart, would do anything for anybody.
And this is not just a concern here in Colorado.
This is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Tonight, we look at the surge in cases nationwide and the major metro cities putting more restrictions back into place. Some justice for Dylan REDWINE. Today, a Durango jury found his father, Mark REDWINE, guilty of murder.
She was active all the time. She worked hard. She loved this community. And I know that she was a Ironman athlete, which is incredible.
Another tragic loss for the Boulder Police Department. The department is now mourning the loss of a second officer in just 4 months.
There were times, particularly when I was struggling, I didn't think I was going to make it. I didn't know if I was going to be alive.
A woman opens up about her past to try and help others who might be battling eating disorders brought on by the pandemic.
People felt a huge sense of loss of control in their lives, had a huge sense of the unknown happening, perhaps had to drop out of other activities.
Good Friday evening, and thank you for watching Denver7 News on Local 3. I'm Jessica Porter. Tonight, we begin with the increasing spread of the Delta variant here in Colorado and nationwide. Mesa County has become a hotbed for Delta variant cases in our state. The most recent data from state health officials shows 1,678 cases of the Delta variant in our state. 680 of those are in Mesa County, or about 41%. Sadly, the variant is to blame for the death of 15-year-old Casey Lux. Casey tested positive for the Delta variant back in April. Her mother says the symptoms worsened so quickly, Casey had to be airlifted to Children's Hospital in Aurora. She died in May.
I'm still having a hard time believing on what happened. You shouldn't have to lose your own kid over it.
Casey's mother says if your child comes down with symptoms and tests positive for COVID, don't wait. Get them medical care as soon as possible. And this is not just a Colorado issue. Cases of the Delta variant are spreading rapidly across the entire country. It has caused more cities to put restrictions into place. New tonight at 8, the Southern Nevada Health District issued a new order recommending people wear masks in crowded indoor spaces, and that includes Las Vegas casinos. Tonight, ABC's Whit Johnson has a look at the spread of the variant nationwide.
Tonight, an alarming rise in COVID cases as vaccination rates plunge across the country, down nearly 85% since mid-April, prompting this stark warning from the director of the CDC.
This is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Our biggest concern is that we are going to continue to see preventable cases, hospitalizations, and sadly deaths.
The administration monitoring the highest transmission in 5 states, including Florida, which accounts for 1 in 5 of all cases in the U.S. And with the Delta variant now dominant, concern about breakthrough infection.
You never expect yourself to necessarily be in that category. But I became one of those unlucky breakthrough cases.
Travis Dejanay says he's fully vaccinated but tested positive after traveling to Cape Cod for the 4th of July. Current data shows the vaccines remain highly effective at preventing hospitalization and death. But today, Dr. Fauci was asked how much those rare breakthrough cases were contributing to the current spread.
I think one can make a reasonable assumption that it would be less likely that vaccinated breakthrough person would transmit compared to an unvaccinated person.
The U.S. daily case average jumping 129% since mid-June. Today, California topping 4,600 new COVID cases, the most since February. Now, at least 11 counties reimposing indoor mask mandates or recommendations, even for the vaccinated, impacting more than half the state.
We're seeing a significant spike, such that the numbers are about 7-fold.
And with some children returning to the classroom in just days, Arizona educator and parent Katie Nash wants the state to bring back its mask mandate in schools.
It just makes me very apprehensive about what potentially could happen when you have 30 plus kids in a classroom, all working together, sharing that same space, that same air.
Kids under 12 still not eligible for a vaccine, but Pfizer is planning to apply for emergency authorization in September or October. Regulators say they want to see extra assurances the vaccine is safe, possibly extending the time spent monitoring kids for any reactions. That could mean shots into arms by late this year or early 2022.
The notion that children can't be sick or become very sick with this virus is false. This is a disease which can be severe in children, and if we can prevent it safely, we should prevent it.
And today, the FDA granted an accelerated 6-month timeline for the Pfizer vaccine, which could mean full approval by January 2022, possibly sooner. Some think this might persuade businesses and schools to require vaccines and perhaps give some people who are still on the fence more confidence to go out and get their shots. Whit Johnson, ABC News, New York.
Thank you, Whit. Rockies manager Bud Black and several others have been removed from the dugout tonight because of COVID protocols. Pitcher Antonio Senzatella and outfielder Jonathan Daza are among the players undergoing contact tracing. It's unclear if this situation is related to the outbreak involving Yankees player Aaron Judge, who was in Denver this week for the All-Star game. Mark Redwine has been found guilty of second-degree murder and child abuse resulting in death in the 2012 killing of his son Dylan. The 13-year-old's remains were discovered near his father's home in 2013 and again in 2015. Mark Redwine was eventually arrested in 2017. Second-degree murder carries a maximum sentence of 48 years in prison. The 49-year-old will be sentenced in October. A Colorado community and their brothers and sisters in blue are mourning the loss of a Boulder police officer. 35-year-old Ashley Harmon died yesterday after falling about 200 feet from a treacherous part of Rocky Mountain National Park. Boulder Police Chief Maris Harold said that the department has been through a lot. Now they're hurting once again, but they know they will get through this together. Today, we learned Officer Harmon was very active and moved to Colorado to enjoy the outdoors.
Ashley was very interested in becoming a police officer in Boulder. And she was interested in Boulder because she loved Colorado and she loved hiking and she was an outdoor person and it would be a perfect fit. She was just a really active officer.
Harmon had only been with the Boulder Police Department for a year and a half. Prior to moving to Colorado, she was a police officer in Houston, Texas. Eastbound I-70 is closing from Brighton to 270 tonight at 10. The closure will last all weekend while crews finish paving a long stretch of the Central 70 project. Westbound I-70 will be closed from Brighton to 270 next weekend. More than 30 million Americans suffer from an eating disorder. Anorexia alone has the second highest death rate of all mental illness. And now new numbers from a Denver nonprofit show the pandemic fueled an increase in this deadly and silent disorder, a disorder that often goes undiagnosed. Denver7's Eddie Guajardo shines a light on the growing problem and how some are finding hope.
Every day we're bombarded with images of perfection and a sense of achievement and happiness that can feel so far-fetched when we look in the mirror.
It kind of began with anorexia.
Emma Moody was just 12 years old when her struggle began.
I felt very unsafe in my physical body. So I thought, if I can stop eating, if I can numb myself.
For 2 years, she skipped meals.
I hid it really well.
And reduced her portions significantly.
I just wanted to hide. I wanted to be so small internally that nobody could see me, nobody could hurt me, nobody could touch me, nobody could love me because I didn't feel worthy of love.
By 14 years old, she broke down and sought help. Her parents checked her into Children's Hospital. 7 years later,
unfortunately, when I was 21, I lost my father to suicide.
And she spiraled, turning to binge eating to fill a void and numb the heartache.
There were times, particularly when I was struggling, I didn't think I was going to make it. I didn't know if I was going to be alive.
Each year, millions of Americans suffer from eating disorders.
A lot of eating disorder behaviors are really kind of culturally acceptable in our society, unfortunately.
Dr. Barbara Kessel, a child and adolescent psychiatrist at Eating Recover Center, says the pandemic fueled a rise in eating disorders as people dropped out of activities, felt a loss of control over their lives, and spent hours on social media.
Just consuming massive amounts of these messages that you need to lose weight. Here's an exercise routine. Try this diet. It's going to change your life. Maybe even this supplement that's going to cause you to lose weight. And those messages can be so toxic.
The most common eating disorders are anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating.
Prior to the opioid epidemic, were the #1 cause of mortality or death of any psychiatric condition.
She says most people die from 2 causes: suicide and medical complications. Since the pandemic, the Eating Disorder Foundation, a nonprofit in Denver, has experienced more than 1,000% increase in new support group members seeking help compared to 2019. Eating disorders impact people of all ages. Recently, the nonprofit saw a spike in participants between 13 and 17 years old and launched a new support group for those 50 and older as needs grow.
Sometimes there is a small voice in the back of my mind that feels, kind of calls me back or tries. It never really goes away completely.
Emma heavily relied on the nonprofit for her recovery.
I haven't had a binge or a period of restriction in probably 3 years of my life.
She's now a mentor, helping people recover and find the life that brings in light.
Colors are brighter, food tastes better, and relationships and connections are so much more valuable for me, and I have no desire to go back, and I think that's such a gift.
Addie Guajardo, Denver7.
Addie, thank you. If you or someone you know is suffering from an eating disorder, head to thedenverchannel.com. We have several links to organizations that can offer help.
A federal judge rules the DACA program illegal, impacting future applications. It comes as our state leaders are advocating for immigration reform.
For us, immigration is natural. Climate immigration is natural. People move. It's been happening since the beginning of time.
The flooding emergency in Europe is getting even more dire.
The rain just kept coming, and then throughout the night it just kept coming down, and next morning we woke up to what you see here.
Conditions look great up in the high country this weekend. A little cooler too, temperatures in the 80s for afternoon highs. But I'll let you know what we're looking like here across the Front Range weather-wise coming up.
And coming up later, Jeffco has a new way to help you beat the crowds at trailheads.
To whatever extent that we could get fewer cars on the road, and I support that.